The Leafs win streak ends at 7. Soupy gives up 5. Are we sounding the alarm yet? Find out today on Locked On Leafs.
You're Locked On Maple Leafs, your daily podcast on the Toronto Maple Leafs. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey guys, welcome into Locked On Leafs, your one-stop shop for all things Leafs. I'm your host, Mike DiStefano from TSN 1050 Toronto Radio, also known as Al's brother from TSN 1050's Overdrive and Leafs Lunch. With me, my new permanent co-host of the show. It's Dave Morassutti from Sportsnet and a writer from the NHLPA. And just a reminder that this is a daily Maple Leaf-centric podcast, so be sure to subscribe to the show for free wherever you get your podcast. And now you can check us out on YouTube as well. So go check that out at Locked On Leafs. So the Maple Leafs end up losing to the Calgary Flames today, which ends their winning streak at 7. Campbell not so great in this one. So we'll get into this game. We'll kind of break it down, give you our 3 keys. And then the Oilers ended up firing Dave Tippett today. So we'll also kind of discuss our thoughts on that quickly. That's 2 Canadian coaches fired in the last 48 hours, which is actually wild. I also have a couple of really crazy stats that have to do with that firing too that I'll share with you guys later on. But let's get right into tonight's game. And it was a bit of a weird one, Dave. Like, the Leafs definitely outplayed them. The Leafs were the better team of the two. Things started out really well for Toronto early. I liked what I saw for them through the first half of the game. And then within a matter of like 5 minutes, everything changed, and the Leafs were kind of just unable to climb out of a massive hole that they kind of got themselves in. And I think James Duthie said it best on the broadcast tonight. He said, if you went and walked your dog after the Mangiapane goal, you came back and all of a sudden it's 4-1 after it was 1-1. You're just like, what happened? And 3 consecutive shots, the Calgary Flames were able to get by Jack Campbell, and a 5-2 final ends the Leafs winning streak at 7. I guess first and foremost, initial thoughts on the game there, Dave.
I kind of saw a Leafs team that was a little unsure of itself. And, the Flames kind of really pushed and dictated the pace, and the Leafs just couldn't match it. Like, you look at the goals that were given up, like the Flames came in strong. They had speed, and they really pushed things to the end. The Leafs they kind of just looked like they were there, but they weren't doing much. A couple of those goals Campbell's left out to dry, and a couple of guarantee he would want back.
Yeah.
It was just one of those where the Leafs just looked flustered because the Flames just came right at them and they had no response.
Yeah, I mean, I think when you take a look at this game and you kind of break down just like the simple stats, the Maple Leafs outshot them, they outchanced them. You look at the expected numbers, they were expected to win that game. They had a 59% expected goal share, and they outshot them 48-26. And I mean, Calgary played the night before too. So I think, and Markstrom played the night before, got a shutout against Vegas, and they throw him out there on night 2 of a back-to-back, and he goes out and puts up a 46 save performance, and kind of made Campbell look silly because of how well he looked tonight. But I kind of tease this right at the top here. Jack Campbell tonight, you look at the game, 26 shots on goal, only stopped 21, and in his last... Well, let's just skip to tonight, actually, and then we can kind of talk about what it's been through over the last little bit here. But 3 of the 5 goals, according to Natural Stat Trick, were low to medium grade chances. 3 out of the 5 goals. So he probably ones that you want back. Those are ones that you definitely want back. And I can think of a couple as well. But when you look at the expected numbers, he allowed 2.62 goals allowed above expected tonight. I mean, you round that up to 3 goals. That was the difference in tonight's game.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, not every goal, like they're clean goals that, it wasn't like they had traffic in front of Campbell. It's not like Campbell was screened or was off a tip. Like he was just beat cleanly. I think of the Rasmus Anderson goal, like just beat straight Richter. Like goals like that, just they kind of put a damper on any, and the Leafs are trying to make a comeback. They're pushing hard, and it dampers any chance the team's going to have to try to push forward if you're giving up backbreaking goals like that.
Yeah, and you look at the goals and where they kind of came from tonight. You take a look at the heat map, they're kind of coming from outside of the slot, and that's not typically what you see in a hockey game. I think the numbers like 80% of the goals are scored from within the hash marks and within that slot and inward towards the net. You look at these goals, they're kind of like by the face-off dot. There's a couple that came in from the point. You think of the one on the power play from Shillington right off the draw there. And it's just, they were kind of easy goals that you just kind of need to stop. I think Campbell needed to give them a couple more saves, and this is really what's been hindering him as of late. And you take a look at his last 8 starts, right? His last 8. You could take this even further, but specifically in his last 8 starts, he's got a 4-2-1 record, so not too shabby. At least they're winning hockey games, right? They've picked up 7 of a possible, what's that? 7 of a possible 14 points? No, that's not true. 9 of a possible 14 points when he's in net. But a 411 goals against average and an 864 save percentage in his last 8. I got to ask you, Dave, are you a little bit worried that the bubble is starting to burst here on Jack Campbell? Because you can even go back to, realistically, back to December 1st, and those numbers can give you a little bit of a bigger sample size. And it's not as daunting, but you're still looking at over 3.5 goals a game and a sub 900 save percentage.
Yeah, you can, at this rate, if it's like a 3-4 game blip, you're like, okay, he has a chance to turn things around. But considering this is like
2 months,
like December, beginning of December, it's been like this. Like that's the concerning part, right? For the first 2 months of the season, he was saving their bacon a lot.
Yeah,
and I think it takes, and he plays on the mental part of the game so much that I think it's weighing on him a little bit more than now, especially. So yeah, it's a little concerning, but I guess maybe the good thing for the Leafs right now is they do have Peter Mrazek, who's coming off 4 straight wins. He's got a little bit of momentum there. You can give Campbell a little bit of reprieve in saying, look, right now you're struggling. We get it. We're not taking the job from you. We're just going to let Peter kind of take a little bit of a leash here and move forward.
Are you suggesting are you saying what I think you're saying? Are you saying that there could potentially be a goalie controversy in Toronto? Is this what you're saying right now? Do you want to roll with the hot hand?
You have to at some point because you're in a battle right now for the Atlantic Division. I understand you're going to need, I think you're still going to need Jack Campbell when the puck, when it's really, when the stakes are high, but you also can't, as I've heard a lot of people say, the NHL is not a place where you try to figure things out, right?
Right.
You got to be able to do it on your own. So I think Campbell just needs like a bit of a mental reset. I thought he got that when he played, just before the All-Star break, but we also have to remember it's New Jersey Devils that he played, right? This is the Calgary Flames. He's struggled against really good teams, and that's concerning because guess what? In the playoffs, you're going to playing very good teams. So I think I don't want them to to feed him easier matchups, but I think they gotta make it a little bit easier on him somehow. And the Leafs haven't really done Campbell many favors, but I think they gotta figure something out. I think Mrazek playing a little bit more right now. The team vibes would be really good if he continues to play well. So their confidence will be better than if they try to just get Campbell to snap out of it, and maybe that just sets them further back.
Yeah, and when you look at Mrazek, he's won 4 in a row, and he's got a 921 save percentage in those 4 games, and one of those games being, coming into relief after Campbell got lit up against the Devils in a comeback victory there for Peter Mrazek of the Maple Leafs. We'll get into some more of this game, but one quick note that I did want to mention, Ondrej Kase left the game, if you missed it, took a monstrous hit in the first period. Kind of looked like he took a shoulder to the head. It was Nikita Zadorov who just laid a hit, which it was a pretty clean hit. I mean, you could argue that there was some shoulder to the head, but it was not intentional, just kind of through follow through ended up happening. But literally knocked his bucket off of his head, and he skated straight down the tunnel and that did not return. We all know kind of what the history of Ondrej Kase has been. You know, he's had concussion issues his entire career. This was somewhat the reason why he's here on such a cheap deal, is because it was always, okay, if he can stay healthy, it will work out. And he's been able to do that for the most part so far this year. And let's hope. They said they took him out for precautionary reasons.
Yeah.
The same thing happened with Auston Matthews the other night in Carolina. I'm hoping that is the same case, and that this is not going to be, you know, a worse thing for Ondrej Kase, because he's already dealt with a lot when it comes to head injuries.
Yeah, that's the concern, Brian. Like when you see a guy's helmet fly off, you know it's a violent collision. Like that was a real tough hit. I'm not a fan of those hits. No, I don't think it was an illegal hit. Like I think that's the thing people need to be aware of. It's not an illegal hit, but I don't think it's a hit that you want to see, because he didn't have the puck. I know the puck was going his way, but he didn't have the puck. The timing, he didn't really have a chance to really brace. He was starting to brace himself for the hit, but he didn't get a chance to really do that. And we know Zadorov is a tough customer
The problem is he's skating around like willy-nilly as if he can't get hit, and this is the NHL. If you're trying to skate across a blue line, I mean, we've seen it countless times where you're going to get blown up, and it's unfortunate, but I guarantee you if Jake Muzzin does that to Gaudreau, Leafs Nation is celebrating that as a monstrous hit. You know, that's just a big hit. It's a big, clean hit, open ice check. It's really unfortunate that it resulted in him not being able to finish the game, especially since the Leafs were already short a forward with Wayne Simmons not playing due to the birth of his daughter. So then the Leafs had to play with just 10 forwards the rest of the way, and almost seems like the game got away from them a little bit because, I don't know, maybe they got tired. Maybe they got tired of getting run down by such a physical team like the Calgary Flames. But we'll get a little bit more into this game on the other side. We'll do our 3 stars of the game as well. But before we get there, why don't you tell us a little bit about one of today's show sponsors, Dave?
Yeah, so today's episode brought to you by Built Bars, the low-calorie, high-protein, a candy bar that you can take and, has all the low carbs, high protein, high fiber that you're looking for. If you compare that to a candy bar, which usually has around 240 calories, 30 grams of sugar, and dozens of net carbs, Built Bar is the better choice for you. So at Built Bar, they're all about the taste. They make it taste delicious first, then figure out how to make it healthy. I don't know about you. That's usually things I like to see.
Yes.
Delicious first, but also healthy. So make sure you go to BuiltBar.com, use the promo code LOCKED15 and get 15% off your order. So remember, use the promo code LOCKED15 for 15% at Built.com.
Welcome back into the Locked On Leafs podcast. I'm Mike DiStefano from TSN 1050. Alongside me, I've got Dave Morassutti, my new co-host here, as we navigate you through the ins and outs of what's happening within Leafs Nation here at Locked On Leafs, your only daily Maple Leaf-centric podcast out there. So make sure you're subscribed to us. You can check us out on YouTube as well. Dave, let's give our YouTube friends our awkward wave. This is what we now are doing, an awkward wave to the YouTube pals. If you want to see our awkward wave and the strange faces we make throughout the show and a lot of hand gestures because we're Italian, go check it out at YouTube, Locked On Leafs. So, yeah, the Maple Leafs tonight, I think we're both pretty much in agreement that the Maple Leafs pretty well outplayed them outside of like a 5-minute stretch where the Calgary Flames just kind of got a couple of really good looks, couple opportunities. Campbell allowed a couple softies, and next thing you know, it went from being a 1-1 tie to a 4-1 lead, and the Leafs just couldn't really get themselves out of it. But why don't we go through our 3 stars of tonight's game? Why don't you start with your 3rd star, Dave?
My 3rd star, I'm going to give it to Morgan Rielly. He wasn't the worst defenseman on the ice, so I guess that's a bonus. And he did try to stick up for his defenseman, Ondrej Kase. Nikita Zadorov is a tough customer, not a
Yeah,
guy you really
he got fed. He got fed a couple of uppercuts from Zadorov. Do you see that? When they
Yeah,
showed the replay, I noticed there was a couple of
even
punches. He dropped the mitts. I don't even know how Zadorov didn't end up getting some extra penalties out of that altercation when it came to him and Riley. But go on, Morgan Riley. I'm with you, by the way. He's also
yeah.
my third star for a lot of the same reasons. Just the sheer fact that he's been sticking up for his teammates recently. I love to see it. He did the same thing the other night in Carolina when John Tavares got cross-checked into the boards. He's the one who went after the Carolina player and said, "Hey, you're not messing around with us. No, not a chance." And did the same thing. Kase gets blown up on the blue line. Riley comes over and says, "Not a freaking chance you're getting away with that." And that's the type of stuff that really has been missing from this team, that type of emotion. So it was kind of good to see both him and TJ Brody got involved a little bit on that play. Who's your second star, Dave?
My second star is Auston Matthews. We were wondering how he was going to respond after, we weren't sure if he was even going to play in this game, and he looked like the Auston Matthews we expect. And I thought he was, he had that one shot that it would have been an unreal goal, but the crossbar said no, sir. And like I like he had drive. He was, every time the puck was on his stick, it was with the purpose. He was really pushing the pace. That line was pretty good. So yeah, Auston Matthews, no issues with him in my books. I thought he was a little unlucky. The Leafs should have had a better fate with the way he was playing.
Yeah, I could have went with Auston Matthews, but since you did, I'll give a little bit of love to Mitch Marner. No, he did not score and put his goal scoring streak to 9 straight games. So that got put to a halt along with the Maple Leafs winning streak. But the guy had a pretty good game. I mean, he ended up with 10 shots tonight. 10 shots for Mitch Marner. Like he was trying desperately to try and make it 9 games in a row with a goal, but the man on the other side, Jacob Markstrom, was not allowing that. But like that top line, Matthews and Marner combined for 18 shots on goal tonight. 18 shots for those two. They were pretty darn good, and Marner also doing a decent job. And 200-foot game. It doesn't get talked about enough. Marner's 200-foot game. So yeah, you got Matthews, I got Marner. Does that leave one Scarborough native as your number one star here, Dave?
Mr. Michael Bunting,
Yes.
Mr. Value. That's gonna be the nickname I'm gonna give him. It's not the best nickname, but yeah, I know. When the Leafs were down and when the Leafs were really struggling, he was still pushing. He was trying to get into the Flames, kitchen, and it didn't necessarily go his way all the time. But I appreciate the fact that he wasn't backing down. He scored a very nice goal. I continue to be impressed with what I see from Michael Bunting every night.
Yeah, like really nice goal actually. Just kind of shot it wide and posted in. But what he's been able to do recently is really found a great fit alongside Matthews and Marner there. And just the fact that he's just getting into it too. Like, doesn't matter who the heck it is. Zadorov, you want to pick on him? He's like, yeah, let's go. And he ended up kind of falling on Markstrom a little bit, trying to get under his skin and maybe, and what I know he's trying to do is he's trying to get under his skin and trying to throw him off. He's like, I got to throw this guy off his game somehow. He's having a real good one. He's on one tonight. If I can get him, get in his kitchen and live kind of rent free in his head for a couple of minutes, maybe we can get one by him and that could change the course of the game. So I can really appreciate the mindset of what Michael Bunting was trying to do. Unfortunately, Jedi mind tricks don't work on a goaltender who's world class like Jacob Markstrom, or at least it didn't work tonight. And he was spectacular. I think if we're talking about, a first star of the game overall, I think you got to probably give it to Jacob Markstrom, who was really, really good. Ended up with 46 saves playing on consecutive nights. Had a shutout last night and a 46 save victory tonight over the Maple Leafs. So, and two quality teams too. Vegas last night, Toronto tonight. Two teams who are going to be real, playoff contenders here this season. So those are 3 stars. I do want to ask you about Jake Muzzin and your thoughts on his game, because he did return to the ice tonight for the first time in 3 weeks. I wouldn't say I was overly impressed, but at the same time, he hasn't played in 3 weeks,
Yeah.
right? And he was thrown into a playoff type atmosphere, like a playoff type game with, a lot of physicality, two high caliber teams. But at the end of the day, I thought the pairing of he and Holl got exposed and picked on a little bit and didn't really play all too well tonight.
Yeah, you know what, like you can tell he was away for a few weeks. He, even though he's been skating for most of the week, getting his legs under him, you can't replace game action in practice. We always hear that. And it looked like that. Him and Justin Holl look slow. They're slow to react. This, they got beat by speed a few times on a few goals. Like it was a rough night for both of them. But yeah, like Jake Muzzin, I give a bit of a pass because it was his first game back. But we're also seeing a trend from early in the season starting to creep back in, which is that pairing just it seems off. I haven't liked that pairing for a while. I think you got young guys like Timothy Liljegren and Rasmus Sandin who are trying to make their case to be playing more often. Give them
Ooh,
the opportunity. I'm not
we've
saying
seen that before there, Dave. Hold your horses. Hold your horses. Okay, here's the problem I have. I'm not ready to even have this conversation yet. I'll be honest with you. Not ready to have the conversation yet, mainly because it was Muzzin's first game back. If
Mhm.
in 2 weeks from now these two are playing the same way and they are turn the puck over, they're missing assignments, which we saw a couple of times tonight by both of them. If we do see that happening more and more and often, then I think we have a case, and then we can start to get a little bit worried. But I actually have liked Justin Hall's game as of late, and eh, could it be because he's playing with Rasmus Sandin? Maybe, and maybe that's a better pairing than Muzzin and Holl. But in my estimation, what would be best is to find a better partner for Muzzin on the second pair, and then have Holl and Sandin kind of be a really good, solid third pair. But I'm not ready to sit here and say that Sandin and Liljegren are ready for second pair 20 minutes a night minutes against
So
tough
maybe
opponents.
maybe to clarify, I'm not saying the two of them overlap. I think you split them. Like you
Oh, so
add,
you're thinking,
split
so
the
are
pair.
you, so like what, Muzzin going down to the third pair?
Whichever way you want to put it, if you want, I think it's Muzzin, Liljegren, however you want to match them up, Sandine and Hall. I just think you need the two of Muzzin and Hall together. I don't like that together. You just said Justin Hall individually has looked better, but then you put him with Jake Muzzin. Maybe it's the effect of them together. It just doesn't work because they get beat very easily with speed. So you give them someone a little bit a younger defenseman that can handle that the speed aspect of it, and then you still have Justin Hall can play physically. Jake Muzzin can too. So there's a bit of a blend there that works, I think, a little bit better than what we're seeing because Justin Hall, Jake Muzzin is supposed to be the shutdown pair on the road where the tough matchups, and it just hasn't worked. It just really hasn't worked.
I wonder too, though, like when you look at tonight's game, like how much of these errors that we're watching and how much are we actually looking at that and saying this was an awful night by those two if Jack Campbell just makes a couple more saves? You know what I mean? Like, and now that I'm kind of looking at the analytics, they actually favor this pairing quite a bit. They had a 60% shot share while out there on the ice. Granted, the Maple Leafs outshot them like 48-26, so that's going to happen. But even like you look at the expected goal for percentage, 60% expected goal differential. So maybe they didn't play as bad, but to the naked eye, it seemed like it because they were combined to dash 5 on the night.
Yeah, but here's the thing, right? You can look good over a period of the game, but there's moments, and that's really for a defenseman. You got to be ready for those moments. So, yeah,
Wow.
I think, look, they're gonna have maybe what I call easier matchups against Vancouver and Seattle. But as I said before with Campbell, you're not gonna get easier matchups when the stakes are high. So the Leafs, and I do still think that the biggest upgrade they will need to make at the trade deadline is that second pairing defenseman. So I'm willing to wait and see a little bit more to see if they can get things going, but from what I've seen, it just hasn't worked.
Yeah, fair enough, buddy. Um, if you listen to me, sometimes you'll win some money. Tonight I was all over the under, and it didn't quite happen because our boy Soupy just decided to throw up in the crease. And but I was looking good for a little bit, but I'm usually not bad when it comes to hockey bets. And a place where I go to win my money is betonline.net. BetOnline has you covered this season with more props, odds, and lines than ever before. As football continues its march through the playoffs, right to the big game. And, well, it's this weekend. The big game's this weekend. BetOnline.net remains the best spot for all your sports scores, podcasts, and news this season. And it's not just football. BetOnline has the up-to-the-minute info on pro and college hoops, the NHL, boxing, UFC, along with your live real-time updates of current games. Don't wait to take advantage of all the new amazing offers available for the 2022 season. BetOnline, it's where the game starts. Dave, you know, the Super Bowl's coming up this weekend. Have you thought about who you might be wanting to take? It looks like the Rams right now, 4-point spread over at betonline.net. You lean in a certain way. Rams, Bengals, what you thinking?
So I'll do two-prong here. First off, I lost money on the Toronto parlay tonight. On the Toronto parlay, not great. So I've been out of a cold streak. But before the season started, I did throw down some money on who I thought was going to win the Super Bowl. And that team is playing in the Super Bowl. I have the Rams from a preseason bet. So I'm considering doubling down on that bet. I might throw a little more money on that just because,
what odds did you get for that?
Oh, they were good odds too. Because this was just after
like plus 750-ish, probably right in that realm-ish.
Yeah, I believe that was it. I threw it because I was making predictions for Sportsnet.ca. I said, you know what? If I'm going to make predictions, I might as well throw my money on it. So I got the Rams at plus 1,200.
Oh, plus 1,200.
They're trying to get me to cash out early.
Yeah, you can probably throw a couple bucks, hedge your bet, guarantee yourself a dub this weekend, and you guys can do that as well over at betonline.net. You could also bet on tomorrow's game that the Maple Leafs have between the Leafs and Canucks, so do that over on betonline.net as well. Welcome into Locked On Leafs, kind of our final segment here. We're going to branch out league-wide a little bit because we got some more big-time news in the NHL. Once again, I'm Mike DiStefano. Well, alongside me, I've got my co-host, Dave Morassutti. And if you are not subscribed to the Locked On Leafs podcast, make sure that you do that so that you can get podcasts each and every day, Monday to Friday, from myself and Dave. And you can also find us now up on YouTube as well. So go find us there at the Locked On Leafs podcast. Yesterday, we were talking about how crazy it was that Marty St. Louis was named the head coach of the Montreal Canadiens, and there was a coaching firing there. And then I woke up this morning and saw that the Edmonton Oilers had also fired their coach, and Dave Tippett out, Jay Woodcroft in. They bring him up from the Bakersfield, their AHL club. So he'll come in and he'll be the interim general manager, or the interim head coach, rather, for the Edmonton Oilers the rest of the way. And I got to tell you, they fired the wrong guy. I could surely tell you that. It's not Tippett, and Woodcroft is going to have the same problem. Because until they figure it out, and that Edmonton team ain't going anywhere. And if the man upstairs, Kenny Holland, isn't willing to make a move to change any of that and bring in a goaltender that'll help this team get victories, he should have been the one who was out the door today. If he's not willing to make that move, he should not be there. Because that's all really Edmonton needs to even be a competent team, is league average goaltending, and they'd be firmly in a playoff spot right now.
Mike, I did listen to your show today. I listened to every single word that Mr. Craig J. Button said, and I agreed 1,000% with what he said, because this Edmonton Oilers team has not had a starter caliber goalie for a long time. It, I think, was the number one thing I said the Oilers were going to need this season. And what did they do? They run back the same tandem that failed them how many times before, and I don't know what you expect Dave Tippett to do. Honestly, like I don't know what you expected him to do, unless you wanted him to play, the trap style game with Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl, which would be a crime in the NHL. You got to,
Torch would love it.
oh, definitely, like definitely. I thought if you want them to be a better defensive team with bad goaltending,
Here's
get
the problem, though. But here's the problem. Like, they were a decent defending team. Like, I'll look this up right now, but last time I checked, and it wasn't that long ago, they were like a top half of the league team defensively. And that's why I think it was just so. That's why goaltending was very clearly the problem, because when you look at their expected numbers, like their expected goals against numbers were in the tops of the league. So I'm just taking a look at this right now. If you look at the entire season, I should probably do. Yeah, they're 11th in the NHL, 11th best in expected goals against average. So they're expected to allow the 11th lowest goals in the NHL. That is not the case and has not been the case. And that's a big reason why they're losing games. And you look at their expected goal for percentage, and it's much higher. Like they're expected to be right in the middle of the pack at a 51% expected goal for percentage. And they have not been able to be a middle of the pack team because they have not gotten that league average goaltending.
Yeah, and there are going to be goaltenders available at the trade deadline. I guarantee if Ken Holland does not fix that, and people say, "Oh, they can't fire Ken Holland," look at their hiring and firing record over the last decade, and it will tell you that this team is not afraid to make change. This ownership group, like Daryl Katz, is not afraid to make change, and I think.
Did you see that statistic, by the way? How many coaches this team has ran through since Ryan Nugent-Hopkins was drafted?
9.
9 coaches in the last 11 years for Ryan Nugent-Hopkins. You talk about instability within an organization. That's it right there. And go find me a single goaltender who had any sizable run as the starter in those 11 years. Go ahead. I'm waiting. Find me one.
Honestly, the only one that I think that they let go that they shouldn't have is Cam Talbot.
Yeah, he was there for like a year and a half. 2 years, I guess.
Yeah.
Was he? Maybe 2 years, yeah.
Other than that, like they hadn't had anyone. Like, that people brought up Devin Dubnyk. Well, Devin Dubnyk lasted only a little bit when he went to the Wild, and then that flamed out. Like, there hasn't been really anyone. They haven't drafted anyone substantial. They haven't made that big move to go and sign a goaltender. Like, nothing. And if I'm an Oilers fan, that has to make me very frustrated with the talent that team has.
And you don't want to know what also is kind of crazy? So this is the 5th head coaching change within the 7 Canadian teams in the last calendar year. DJ Smith is currently the longest tenured coach amongst Canadian teams. DJ Smith and the Bush League Senators have the longest tenured coach amongst all Canadian teams. And then Sheldon Keefe is second. And what's even more wild about that is neither of these two coaches have yet to coach a full 82-game season.
I remember seeing that. That's bonkers. Like, Sheldon Keefe has never coached an 82-game season. Like, and DJ Smith, like, I've actually liked what Ottawa has done, and he's another guy that needs goaltending too.
Have you seen Matt Murray's number as of late?
They're better. They're not what they were at the beginning of the year. Yes, I do agree.
He came into tonight, okay? He came into tonight's game. I'll tell you exactly what the stats are. I was having a little bit of a debate with the guys on Overdrive about this, actually. He came into tonight, his last 7 games since being called up from the minors. Remember, a little awkward stint, got sent down to the AHL. Since being called back up, he is 5-0-2 with a 190 goals against and a 944 save percentage. That was going into tonight. Tonight, he made, let me tell you exactly how many saves he made tonight. 42 out of 43 saves tonight.
Wow.
for a 977 save percentage. Now, they lost the game because Ottawa didn't score a single goal for them, but that's quite the turnaround for Matt Murray, man. Like last 8 games, like near 950 save percentage and a sub 2 goals against since coming back up in the AHL. He may be turning a corner. It may be just a small sample size, and who knows? He could very well turn back into a pumpkin. But I did see this stat, and I thought it was noteworthy, and I'm kind of keeping an eye on it because those Ottawa pesky Sens are playing decent hockey right now. And I've been saying this for the last year or two. Eventually, the Battle of Ontario is going to heat back up. And if Matt Murray turns into the goaltender that they thought they were getting when they traded for the 2-time Stanley Cup champion, I think that we'll see that Battle of Ontario heat up sooner rather than later.
You know what? I don't disagree with that because the Sens always play the Leafs tough, even when we don't expect them to. Like, look what happened to them last year. Like,
Yeah.
That team loves playing against the Leafs because they know that their style irks the Leafs really badly. So I'm not totally that's not too bad off key there. I think the Leafs, if anything, should be taking note of the way like the Sens in a way they kind of remind me of the Flames and that
Just
they
gonna say that a little bit of a less skilled Flames team,
because they don't have like the Johnny Gaudreau that can score at like that. But they
or
do have
Lindholm, who's extremely underrated. Elias Lindholm,
he was
that guy's unreal. Like realistically, that whole top line, Gaudreau, Lindholm, and Kachuk, they're one of the best lines in hockey. I saw Mike Kelly put out a stat. Actually, it was before the All-Star game. How that literally is the top line according to the expected goal analytics, the top line in the NHL.
yeah. Like that trio is so underrated.
And 200 feet, they all played 200 feet. Even Gaudreau is starting to, build up that 200-foot game, which who would have thought that? They're really buying. You know what the problem is? Not a problem, but like a big reason why the Leafs lost tonight. I guess we could kind of bring this back to the Leafs somehow. Went from Oilers firing Tippett, which who cares? It's the Oilers. Let's bring it back to the Leafs anyway. And back to tonight's game. The thing is, like, Daryl Sutter's team has, like, they always have the same identity. They have an identity, and they just kind of kept with that tonight. And at some point, they wore down the Maple Leafs, and then they caught them sleeping for 5 minutes. 5 minutes, the Maple Leafs just kind of took the foot off the gas and started to coast, and they were missing assignments. They weren't skating as hard. They weren't, being as crisp and as perfect as they had to be against a team like this. And then they pounced. And that's when they started to, it's like, you make a mistake, we're going to make you pay for making that mistake. And that's kind of exactly what happened within that 5-minute span tonight. That 5-minute span where they went out and went from 1-1. 5 minutes later, you're looking at a 4-1 hockey game. And that was it. The Leafs couldn't come back because Flames have one of the stingiest defense in the league. And they got a top-tier goaltender in Jacob Markstrom. They're not going to surrender a 3-goal lead. It doesn't matter how good you are, Connor, or whether you're, Auston Matthews or you're Mitch Marner, who's one of the hottest goal scorers in the NHL right now. Doesn't matter who it is. They were not going to surrender that 3-goal lead once they got it, and that was kind of the ball game right there.
Yeah, like that's the thing the Leafs need to realize too is yes, they've come back against teams. I mean, you look at the game against the Devils that we talked about earlier. They can't expect to do that against a team like the Flames. Like teams, Flames are realizing that their formula is to copy the kind of what the Canadians did, which was really piss off the other team, play stingy defense, don't give up a lot, and rely on your goaltending. Like they have, I think Markstrom right now is solid case for the Vezina. Like he can, that's a goalie that can steal you a series. We've seen him do it. So I think if you're the Leafs, you look at what the Flames did to you, and you got to say that's what we have to counteract. That's where we're going to have to figure out how to beat because it doesn't get any easier in the playoffs because a lot of teams are mimicking that style.
Yeah, and just taking a quick peek here, the Calgary Flames expected goals for percentage, goal share 55%, second in the NHL. Pretty good. pretty
And you
good.
don't
So,
expect that from a Daryl Sutter team because you don't think an old school guy like that
well,
would
you think
have.
you do because you think they're not going to give you a whole lot, and then when you have guys like Johnny Gaudreau who can score at will almost, and then you also include, your Matt Kachucks and your Elias Lindholms and, Andrew Mangiapane's really turned into a solid player. You're going to get that offense just from having those skilled players. And that's how you end up with, a better goal share, a better shot share, a better outcome. And that's what happened tonight with the Calgary Flames against the Maple Leafs.
Mhm.
Does that mean that in a 7-game series, the Leafs are going to get, rumped every single night? No, because frankly, like we said, the Leafs actually outplayed Calgary. It was just those 5 minutes, and that's basically, you talk about Montreal. That's what happened against Montreal. There was 3 or 4 key mistakes, 1-second mistakes. You give that puck away within 1 second, the game was altered, the game was changed, and the Maple Leafs were out of the playoffs.
I really don't want to relive this. I really
No,
don't.
let's not relive this. Let's
I,
not go
I have to
down
call. I
memory
have to
road
call a
here.
therapist now. Thanks,
Well,
Mike.
well, at least we can be happy with the fact that, well, that team sucks. Is in literally last place right now.
They're in a rear view right now.
Yeah, fired their general manager. They fired their head coach. It's a bit of a clown show with Marty St. Louis, who went from coaching a 14-year-old Pee Wee kids 3 days later. He's coaching in the NHL. They did lose their first game today, by the way, so did not get that new coach bump. I will say Cole Caulfield, though, did score. And Cole Caulfield, Marty St. Louis, just saying. They're both small, is what I'm saying. That's it. That's all I'm saying. They're both kind of tiny human beings out there on the ice, and both really good, really skilled players. And I just thought it was kind of funny how Cole Caulfield scored 1 goal in 29 games this season, and then
For one.
boom, in comes Marty St. Louis, the Cole Caulfield whisperer apparently scored tonight. Did score a second too, but it ended up getting called back. All right, last question for you before we get going, because as always we're running late. But Leafs taking on the Canucks this Saturday night. If you are Sheldon Keefe, who gets the net?
I think you got to go Peter Mrazek. And then you can decide for Seattle what you want to do. I think with Vancouver, you give Peter Mrazek because you don't want to keep him sitting too long either.
I'm in a situation now where it's really bizarre. I almost feel like you have to do one of two things with Jack Campbell. You either have to run him out in consecutive games and get him going, because back when he was at his best is before cancellation started happening, and there was a rhythm, and he was playing every other night in October and November, and that's when he was at his best. So you have to do that or opposite. You got to sit him for a week, and you let Mrazek run with the net for a little bit. Let him kind of, ride the hot hand, if you will. And, when he starts to fizzle out, maybe then, boom, you inject Jack Campbell back into the mix after a few games or a little bit of a run here for Peter Mrazek. I don't know which way to go, to be honest with you, but I don't know if I want to go 1-1-1-1-1 anymore. I think I'm ready to kind of to say there's a little bit of a goalie controversy, and I think we could start rolling with the hot hand. I know we talked about it early in the show. We're going to end it with the same exact conversation, and I want you, the listeners, to weigh in on it as well. You can hit us up on Twitter at Locked On Leafs. Let us know, what do you want to do in net? Riding with the hot hand, or has Campbell earned the respect to at least work his way out of this funk? Let us know on Twitter. Let us know in the comments below if you're out there on YouTube. But that's going to do it for us here today on the podcast. I'd like to thank you all for listening and supporting the show. You can subscribe to the Locked On Leafs podcast on all podcasts and platforms and receive daily Leafs content. Follow myself on Twitter at Mickey_Canuck. Follow the show at Locked On Leafs, and follow Dave at D_Morassutti. Dave, enjoy your weekend, pal. Enjoy the games, everybody, and we will chat with you guys on Monday. But until then, keep it locked right here on Locked On Leafs.